Swimming has always been such a big part of my life, and swimming's the main thing that I take photos. That's sort of my escape.
You were a swimmer, you grew up in the swim world, you were at Olympic trials and you shot these photos, and then you figured, hey, I'm gonna take this media game to the next level. So if you were to go back to your early days of being a photographer and look at the journey that got you to starting more of an agency model where you have people that work under you, you have production systems, you have business development systems. How have you been able to navigate that journey from going from a photographer where you were really just shooting something that you were passionate about, right? You were a swimmer, you grew up in the swim world, you were at Olympic trials and you shot these photos, and then you figured, hey, I'm gonna take this media game to the next level. Tell me a little bit about how you saw the opportunity to go into the drone world before we dig into some of the other stuff that you accomplished as a photographer.
Yeah, I mean, I've always seen photography as my passion project. Swimming has always been such a big part of my life, and swimming's the main thing that I take photos of. And being able to have that sort of outlet, even though it's incredibly difficult when I go to a meet and take photos and have to produce that much content, but that's sort of my escape. It's what I enjoy. And on the Epic Drone Tour side, that is a much more scalable model. I have a big business interest and very entrepreneurial minded, so I wanted that to be able to have that model where you can have a team of people, you can work with businesses across the country. But as a photographer, especially in sports, there's times when I can have assistants and editors and things like that, but it's never going to be a massive operation. And so it's the best of both worlds, for me at least, to be able to have the photography and go to meets and be in my happy place and make the content for the people that I love, which is the swim community, and then also have the business where I have a team like Zach and all of our creatives. It really is the best of both worlds.
When you first got into photography, a lot of us, when we first get into anything with a camera, you don't really know what to shoot, right? You're like, oh, I have a camera, I can go shoot this or I can shoot that. And then oftentimes we get pulled in certain directions based off which opportunities are getting thrown in front of us. So how did you see an opportunity in the swim world, and how did you decide, hey, I understand the swim world really well and I want to be the one that's capturing those shots on the front lines, before we get into talking about you going to Tokyo?
Yeah, I mean, before even swimming, I've always just loved, if I'm creating, I want it to be creating something for something that I enjoy and that I have an interest in. Like, I would never be able to go take a gig to shoot something that I don't care about. Like, first ever video I made was in my sophomore year of high school. I did a documentary about the wildfires in 2007 that basically burned down my whole town. And I interviewed a couple of the newscasters that were local and documenting it. I got a bunch of B-roll from videographers that were in front of the flames, and that was, I think, still one of the best pieces of media I've created, because it was something that it affected me. I was passionate about capturing it, and yeah, I think that you get a different edge when it's something that you really understand, and when you have that creative vision and eye mixed with knowing what you're talking about, I think it makes a big difference. And so with swimming, I think that is where I have a little bit of an edge, is because I spent so many hours in the pool and understand it so well. Whereas a lot of photographers, let's say for football or basketball, they weren't athletes before, and so they're just capturing how they see it. But when you have that nitty gritty, when you're used to being in the dirt in the sport and knowing the ins and outs of it and what angle is going to be this best shot during this stroke, and knowing exactly when an athlete's going to do this reaction at the end of a race, I think is really important, because one of the things that I love to capture is people's faces and reactions in swimming, rather than just the swimming itself. And because I know about swimming and I spend so many time at meets and watching races and studying it, I feel like I have an advantage of knowing exactly what's going to happen at which time, and that helps a lot because of my passion and interest for it.